With regard to culture, because there's a lot going on here, and I want to get to it. We did get an audience question around effectively culture. I think there are some foundational areas that my organization struggles with, roles and governance. Do you have any more detailed example of how you have seen this stood up at companies?
Yeah, so I'd say first just starting with roles or kind of the trickiness with deciding kind of who owns what, and then we'll chat a little bit about governance because I think that might be specifically where this person's asking about. So generally the concept of roles, which I think applies to everyone, especially when you're getting started with growth. What I found is that sometimes people are doing pieces of this, they're just not organized. Right. So there might be someone doing SEO, but it's not part of a formal acquisition effort. Right. Or maybe there's some people in product that are building experiences that help drive some self-serve movement, but they're not organized around any particular overall PLG motion. So the role definition moment is almost less about getting it perfect or right the first time. It's more about bringing first together the people who are already doing parts of those roles and getting them to operate together. It always suggests kind of starting there and formalizing that and unifying them. So, for example, one of the companies that I worked at before and led the growth team for, called Rapid API, we actually had some folks in our marketing team who were driving really good content and brand awareness and marketing and acquisition space, but we're thinking of it more in terms of enterprise, less in terms of self-serve. And so one of the things that I did when I came and started to build up the product acquisition side is formed pods, let people kind of just gave clarity to the roles people are already doing, definitions, and then again gave metrics that help people row together across the team. So say lean into some of the roles that folks have when you're getting started, just add clarity and definition on top of what they're doing versus trying to completely go from 0 to 1 and give all new role definitions, which tends to be a little bit infeasible, especially because that, a lot of times it means like a lot of hiring, which companies aren't always ready for. So lean into the existing roles people are doing, just give more polish to them and help operate in pods. The second round around governance. So, for folks, just to unpack that a little bit, what I suspect this person's asking about is when you have a lot of folks working together and doing data and trying to drive insights, folks can sometimes approach creating data and labels and data taxonomy in different ways, and it can start to get a little bit messy, right? Because people are labeling data in different ways. Who's sort of responsible for managing that and deciding, like, how do you keep the data clean? How do you ensure that it's a healthy place? So if somebody in team A is doing analysis on signups and someone on team B is doing analysis and signups are using the same events, here's what I found. For companies that are more in a more advanced state or are really leaning into analytics, having a dedicated analyst team or data engineering, data analytics team be responsible for that tends to be effective. They kind of own definitions. They define overall taxonomies, and then it percolates down and folks adapt into that. Not everybody is at that stage. For folks that are earlier on, I think the most important thing is best you can to try to have rules and regulations for how things are tracked and tagged and what that looks like. Because what can happen, right? I'm sure this person's aware, is that folks distributed across the company can do their own instrumentation tagging, and that's what causes the mess. So the more that there can be a centralized force, it gives those definitions. It's little less important whether it's somebody in a marketing role or a product role. Just important that someone kind of takes ownership and sets a definition. And again, as you get more advanced, it's really great for someone in data to own that.
Well, I will readily admit that in a previous life, I was one of the sales people who would happily take some completely new idea that a prospect was telling me and going to the product team and saying, if we only build this, we're going to get these guys over here. So let's, and just kind of promising more than potentially what we were capable of delivering. I got over that. But I guess my point is that there still is, some cultural reorganization, rethinking that has to happen here within some organizations, some very mature organizations. I want you to talk a little bit about the idea of a growth team and how to start thinking about bringing these three responsibilities, the marketing, sales, or however you want to look at it, but marketing, sales, and product. How do you start to think about bringing them together? How should people be thinking about that?
Yeah, so it starts with recognizing that those teams often in their current states today don't realize how the other teams can help them, right? Other than what they explicitly ask for and their kind of siloed fashions. In the growth space, and when folks are rowing together, sales gets more leads, better leads that they can close faster. In a world where they're working together, marketing is able to have more relevant data, more relevant people to reach out to, more clear features, a better self-serve experience to drive more people through their funnel and their process. In product, when they build product experiences, they can more easily get those over to sales. They see more dollars come from the product that they're building because they're in the space. So that it starts with the cultural shift you're talking about, really just starts with getting those teams to see how working together helps themselves. Because I think that, in a zone where it organically someone else is viewed as other, there's it breeds that kind of, okay, this is my space, this is their space. And so that's one of the things that I like to try to do when I come into a new company or I'm advising a company that's trying to figure this out, is to say, hey, look, let's break down what is causing, the sales team to feel like the product team isn't able to meaningfully help them. And let's unpack that. Let's help prove out how if they work with product or working closely with that team to drive monetization, for example, that the product team is going to be able to generate more pipeline for them. And if they spend the time connecting and working with that team to co-own and cooperate in that space, they're going to get more money at the end of the day. And on the product side, that if they're not viewing sales as, people who just, hey, they have a quota, they're going to sell my stuff, I'm going to build it, and they need to do their thing. If they're viewing it as, hey, look, I can actually build things specifically that are indexed on and designed to drive a sales conversation. I can think through that explicitly and pull marketing in to help with those comms. My products generate more revenue. So it really starts with that, is realizing, is really helping folks understand and believe that working together is going to help themselves.
Well, Laura, this has been tremendous. We've very much appreciated having Amplitude in our spotlight today. Thanks very much for your presentation, and best of luck in 2024.
Thanks, Doug. Best to you too. Thanks for having me.
If your business would like to be featured in a future event, contact us today.